Hi, I'm Laura.
Hey, I'm Stefan, and you're listening to Attributed, a podcast library by Dream Data.
The purpose of it is to store and share all the knowledge that we have gathered across Dream Data employees through our LinkedIn Lives, podcasts, and webinars.
The typical topics you'll find here can be stuff like marketing,
Sales,
B2B ads,
operations.
social selling, maybe. Hello, and welcome everybody to another Attributed session brought to you by Dream Data. I am Stefan Hildebrandt. I'm one of the co-founders of Dream Data, and I'm super happy today to have a great guest with me, somebody that I've been running with in Central Park, but also somebody I've been following on social for several years now. And I'm using at that Dream that we're using a similar product to Navatics, which we will hear about in a minute, which is an interactive demo product that we've slapped on several use case pages to help people understand how does the Dream Data product look, work, feel, etc. But it hasn't really been something we've completely geeked out on or kind of really explored all the opportunities of these interactive demos, which it basically seems to become like a household thing now in B2B, that if you have a product that takes a bit of explanation or you want to give a taste of before people buy the product, it seems like what most people are preferring to do nowadays. So today we're jumping into interactive demos and geeking out on everything related to that. And luckily I have you with me, Natalie, who knows most of these things related to this. But for those who have never heard about you before, Natalie, or know what you do, can you give like just a 1-2 minute fly into your job?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Natalie Marcotullio, head of growth and product marketing at Navatic. Definitely love geeking out on interactive demos. At this point, I probably looked at like thousands of demos. I always joke there's just like a space in my brain dedicated to interactive demos at this point. So, more than happy to talk about cool use cases, my favorite customer examples, and just like, yeah, to your point, more ways you could be using them. I think that's pretty common where we hear someone say, I put it up on my website, I got some good early traction from it, but like, what's next steps? What are the most creative ways I could be using it?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the first question is, why did you decide to bet your career on working at Navatic 3.5 years ago? Because I guess they just started out back then. Like, why did you believe that this interactive demo thing could become something?
Yeah, I always worked in startups, so been like a two-time solo marketer. So I will say like joining another startup for me wasn't as much of a bet, more just like a exciting opportunity. But I actually was an early customer of Novatic. So
Mm,
my last startup, we had a PLG free motion, but we were selling like a kind of complex CRM software to not the most technical audience. And getting them to activate was like one of the banes in my existence at that
yeah.
last job. So much time was put towards like redoing the onboarding experience, thinking through how we can enable them with drip emails, all these different things. And it just felt like nothing was fully working. I remember one day I was in a leadership meeting and someone said, like, I wish we could just show them and walk them through the product without them having to set it up themselves. At the time, I had heard of Novatic, so I was wanted to try it out and became an early adopter. I think we were like customer number 30 or something like that, and just like instantly fell in love with that, the fact that me as a marketer could create this asset. Like in the past, in the PLG motion, if we wanted to experiment with a form field, that would be at least a sprint cycle, which is 2 weeks. Now with a demo, I could just go in, remove a form field, add a form field, experiment. So I just really love the idea of like the marketer being a little more in control of their what they're ultimately responsible for. And then once I tried it out, it kind of aligned really well that they were looking for their first time head of marketing. I was sort of looking for a change, and yeah, stars sort of aligned there.
Super nice. I actually joined a company as well back in the day because I was a hardcore user of the product. I read the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And in there, he was recommending Elance as like a platform to hire, people from all over the world to collaborate with you at an arbitrage cost of what you would pay in an expensive country as Denmark. And starting to use that platform a lot, I joined Elance when they opened their first office in Europe, trying to expand the platform here as well. So I do really recognize maybe it's a good career advice to go work for one of the companies where you already know deeply how their products work, because you'll have such an easy time kind of communicating the value and explaining how these products work.
Yeah, and even more exciting than that, like I was also sort of the ICP. Like at my last startup, I definitely was like a very different ICP than me. So that was also sort of fun. I think there are pros and cons to that. Like sometimes you worry, am I too in the weeds of it? But it was really nice, like knowing the product, knowing the ICP and being able to jump in there.
Yeah, that's fun. I think now to this day, I'm still somewhat of an ICP to Dream Data's product as well. And it definitely helps validate messaging where they're like, oh, yeah, that works, or like, no one will get that. So that's actually a fun reflection. But interactive demos, Nat, for those who don't know what it is, maybe you can just like explain it to your non-tech friends. What is an interactive demo if we start there?
Yeah, I'm gonna go non-tech friend definition. It's usually basically like try before you buy for software. So if you think about like the way you buy a lot of other things, like buying cars, usually you get a chance to try out the software before you even commit to like you know, starting to look into buying it. That doesn't exist as much for B2B. Right now, the usual channels are book a live demo with a salesperson or jump on a free trial where kind of like my past startup, you still have to do a certain level of setup to see value. Interactive demos just a way that you can kind of get hands-on and experience the product without really having to do any work or setup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's why pretty much like the exact reason why we started using them at DreamData as well. We do have a free trial, so it's possible to try the product, but you still need to onboard your data. And this just feels like one step easier to just do the screenshots, explain what's on the screen, take the customers through the use cases, and then they have a better feel of what you do. I also feel like a lot of B2Bs are typically missing micro conversions or soft conversions on their websites instead of this like book a demo. But I'm just interested in what you do. I don't want to go into a sales flow right now. I just want to explore a bit more. Do you think that's or like gate something behind like if you want to know more about our product, you have to download this ebook? Do you think that's a common thing that people need a more like a softer way to engage with websites, but besides just running into a sales conversation?
100%. I think we've seen that buyers are doing way more research than ever before they want to jump on a live call. I think it's like Gartner has released Gartner or G2 or both of them have released that it's like 70% of the buying happens before they ever talk to
Yeah.
someone. So we often see customers will use this almost as like a secondary. I've also had like a mid-intent CTA. I also think with the rise of signals and like everyone wanting website intent signals, first party signals, it's just a way to better understand like who's actually in market,
Yeah.
right? If you just have a book a demo CTA, there might be a lot of anonymous people on your website who might be great fits but aren't ready to book a demo, so you won't
Yeah.
really know. Versus if they try an interactive demo, you can still get that data and be like, oh, look, this good fit account tried interactive demo. Maybe let me send some personalized tailored follow up or make sure they're in an email drip or a LinkedIn retargeting campaign. That way you just like stay top of mind. Versus if you don't have anything mid intent, you might just never know.
Yeah. Okay. If we then, if we imagine we have to kind of walk people through the A to Z here, so we have somewhat of an understanding of what is the interactive demo. What is then kind of say you bought Navatic or a similar tool? Where do you decide kind of where to focus your attention first? Where should you start applying the interactive demo initially?
I usually see two different deployments as like the first one. One would maybe be on the website. So as I mentioned, a lot of times we see customers will add that secondary CTA. If their main CTA is book a demo, free trial. Second one might be take a tour or explore product. Those are often some of the most common language we see too for an interactive demo CTA or maybe a new feature launch. I recommend, especially if any companies are having trouble with, hey, putting anything on the website, takes a little more time, it's a little more divisive, we have to get a whole committee on board. That's when I might recommend, like, okay, you have a big new flashy product launch coming up. I mean, especially we know there's like a million AI product launches right now. Why not show how it's different versus just
Yeah.
tell? So those are usually my like tips for first ways to start seeing value.
Yeah. I think we started out developing a kind of use case section on our website where it's like how to do this with Dream Data. And then we could be very specific. Oh, it's this report, and then you click this button and this filter, and then kind of just learning how to use it, solving micro cases before kind of going for that like broader use case on the main homepage.
Yeah, it's funny. We'll either say like one or the other. I think more people are going into it now thinking, hey, I should do it segmented, maybe have it by persona, use case role. To start off, people usually just did like the overview demo. But I think as they've gotten more popular, people are thinking more, how can I tailor these? And
Yeah.
I have plenty of examples for that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hear all these very specific examples, Nat. And one of the reason why I wrote to you is that you guys this year released a let me get the name right, State of the Interactive Product Demo 2025, which really caught my eye because I think at our company we've just been using it in our little sampled way. So I'm very curious to hear more about kind of what's the correct way or what's the best practices on how to use these demos. But I'm curious, this report can you just say a little bit about what is this report and what's the data that is published within it?
Yeah, so it's actually our 3rd year running it. We run it
Oh,
annually, and basically we look at the top 1% of all the demos on our platform. This was the top 1% out of 20,000 this year. So you can imagine these are like cream of crop demos, and we look for things like, how long are they? How many CTAs do they have? Where are they placed on if they're on a website? But this year we also wanted to go beyond just kind of like the marketing use case, and that's sort of the easiest to measure because it is very public facing, right? If you put a demo on your website, I can go look at your website and see where you placed it. So we also add in survey data. So we surveyed 200 of our customers to
mm.
also get some more insights of like how are you using it in other points of the funnel. So how are you using it in sales cycle? That's very common, like, either before a live demo or after as champion follow up. How am I using it for product enablement? Maybe to show off upsell features in the product or for trainings internally. So this year was a mix of both that internal data that we collected, since we just like have stats on, what are the highest performing demos and how are they made up, and then also that survey data.
Oh, that's great, and I think it's just also from a marketing perspective, it makes up a really good case to do a lot of interesting content about, because you can continue to kind of follow the development year on year, which I could see in several graphs that you guys do. What's new then this year versus the past 1 or 2 years? Or what is the couple of top of mind things for you in the new report?
I think the biggest thing is kind of what we are talking about with your use case of putting it on use cases pages. People are thinking way more about how can I create multiple demos that are segmented versus just one demo on the homepage. So a prime example of this was the use of demo centers, which is, let's say, one landing page on your website that has multiple different demos, maybe again broken up by persona, role, use case. So you can go to like one page and find all the different ways to use your product. That increased by 3.75x this year. So almost 4x increase of demo centers compared to last year in that top 1%. So we're noticing not only are there more demo centers, but that top 1% are really utilizing that use case. And I think that's just because, like, once people see success, we see this oftentimes with our customers. They put, again, one overview on the website. They're like, okay, we're seeing increasing conversions or better quality leads. Now let's really ramp this up.
There's actually, related to this, there's a stat I just checked in on our own Dream Data account today, that the interactive demos touched 4 times as many, took a 4 time bigger share of the one accounts as opposed to the MQLs. So there's a 4x jump between who of who of how the interactive demo, sorry, is touching the MQLs, as opposed to those that are really serious about buying. They use the interactive demos more. That was interesting for me to see, but it also tells me about probably the opportunity in the intent data that an interactive demo sits on. That those that are truly serious about buying something, they will actually go to the not to the extreme, but to the measure of actually, okay, let me actually check out these demos. It seems to me like that should be data really interesting for both marketing, but particularly sales as well.
I was gonna say that as far as like what else was new this year, I think the expansion into sales and to your point, like using the data behind it has also been another really interesting growing use case. So whether an outbound, like a lot of times when I talk to customers, they might have it as sort of like the second or third in their email drip email because number
Mm,
one, they might want to put any links. So
yeah.
putting it more like mid or bottom of cadence and saying like, hey, you haven't responded to my emails. Why don't you check it out for yourself? And then using that as an intent signal if you have a lot of different campaigns going on right now. I feel like, mass AI outbound is really popular. If you have a lot, you can then say, okay, the ones who actually went through my interactive demo, that's where I'm going to spend time personalizing another outreach to.
Unfortunately, the mass outbound is popular at the moment. That makes a lot of sense. And I could imagine you could even do it fairly granular as well, like all the way down to like, if you're doing like serious ABM, you could even have a demo just tailored to this one company that you want to impress, and then have UTM set up correctly and everything.
Definitely. We've seen customers, especially ones who have like 200 target accounts, like we've seen in their they'll just have
Mm,
like a demo per one of those target accounts,
yeah,
and they'll change up not just the actual messaging within the demo, but part of we talked a little bit about how interactive demos are made, but they're clones of your software. So it's not just screenshots, it actually like looks and feels like the real thing. And
yeah.
part of that is you can edit the data. So we'll see some of our customers will go so far to be like editing their clone of their software for specific accounts to say like, "Hey Google, welcome to your dashboard."
That's super nice. I'd imagine you also need a certain deal size to chase that amount of effort to impress people. You could imagine also in the future that you could join some kind of IP lookup with the demo, so you just automatically change the logo for me instead of us having to tailor the demo.
Yeah, we do have a, like, IP accounts lookup, and then you
Oh,
can also
nice.
use it in, like we have, like, email variables, basically, personalization variables. So
Yeah,
if you're sending in an outreach sequence, you could have it say, like, "Hi, company name," and it will automatically feed from the email
sweet.
platform provider to your point, so it will automatically update, and you don't have to do one by one by one.
That's super nice. When you get lazy at some point, you don't want to do like one-on-one customization of every campaign.
I think to your point also depends on, like, company size. Like, we're not, at the scale where we're doing one-to-one ABM demos, but I've seen that for our customers who have, like, 200 companies in their
Yeah.
total bucket.
And totally makes sense. And then the rep can have a sequence with a nice looking UTM saying, I was this campaign to this company going here as well. Was there anything else from the report you kind of felt was new or important this year?
And it's not new, but I think it's important because it's the same data every year, and it's just funny how it's consistent every year.
Yeah,
Every
just treated me as I don't know it. So I would love to hear it in general and not just for this year.
Yeah. For the past 3 years, we've seen about 70% of the top 1% of interactive demos are ungated. And that ungated demos have about like a 5 to 10% higher engagement rate than those that are gated. Makes a lot of sense, right? If you're greeted with a gate and that's the first thing you see, you're probably less likely to engage or move forward with the demo versus if the gate isn't there a little later in the demo. But I just think it's funny. There's always a conversation about gating versus ungating. I will say I do think it depends on like where are you putting the demo, what is the goal of the demo, what are your goals, but we do see consistently the ungated demos perform higher than the gated ones.
That's good to hear. Why? What are some examples of when people want to gate it? Because like ours intention is that everybody is allowed to see the product demo. What are some examples where it makes sense, or at least considering gating stuff?
What we would generally recommend is maybe if you want people to see more advanced features. We also have a lot of customers who are in very like
Mm,
cybersecurity is a huge industry for us, and they are often very secure, so they might be worried about like competitors or might not want to put everything out there. So what we'd recommend is maybe give like a short little tidbit of your product, like very high level, so that the first thing they see is negate and then put in a gate. So
yeah,
that way you can do email blacklisting. You can make sure that, those who don't want to see more advanced features can't see it, but you're also getting some data as far as like, hey, this person's really high intent if they're making it to the more advanced features.
yeah,
We've also seen some customers
mm,
actually use that email for things like personalization. So to your point, you could use also email or form variables to personalize the demo. Or we even have like Ramp, for example. I think they have a really nice form deployment. If you're going to do a form, it's one email field. It has social proof on it. It's not very intrusive. Like if you are going to do a gate, we also recommend as few forms as possible, few fields as possible.
yeah,
If you sign up for their free product, they remember your email and then use that to help pre-populate that sign up. So if you're doing something useful with that information, then I think it can be helpful to gate. If you're just like, oh, we need to throw a gate on it for attribution purposes, we have some workarounds around that. So you don't just need a gate as the only way to see attribution. And I'm
yeah,
sure you all know plenty about how to find attribution in ungated things.
yeah. I think there's some fair reasons in what you're saying, particularly when like it's advanced product and it's like it's a deeper conversation. Then you also want to know who you have to deal with this information about. My view of the world is just kind of on gating stuff, so it's not always that it makes sense that people gate stuff. But for attribution purposes, I think as long as you can capture the IP of those who are browsing, that's really great. We have also been using the ability to, when we send a mail, we track and identify who clicks the mail and then brings that into the interactive demo, so we can actually see the exact person engaging with the demo. But 9 out of 10 times it will be just an IP that you can see looked at it. Have you, and it doesn't have to be in this report, but looked at how important that people flick through the whole demo as opposed to just doing, I think we get data back from the first 25, 50, 75, and 100% click through rate that we then map into Dream Data. Have you seen any that kind of data of how important it is that people complete the demo, or how long should the demos be?
Yeah, we looked at the top 1, 10, and 25% of the interactive demos on our platform. We see for just like step one of the demo. So that's engagement rate. How many people are actually engaging with the demo on your website? Anywhere between like 50 to 80%. So if you put a good looking demo on the website, you should get good engagement. As far as completion, usually anywhere between like 30 to 60%. I think it also depends again on like how long is the demo. We generally recommend 10 to 12 steps, and we really start to see drop off around that 10-step mark. And
Okay.
then again, like, are you using it for intent? Like maybe you're okay with having a little bit longer demo because you want to know the people who made it all the way to the end because that shows the highest level intent. And we also, for time wise, recommend about like 2-ish minutes is really that sweet spot. So you do want to try to get people sticking around for like 2 minutes.
And this internet age or AI age, getting people for 2 minutes is pretty good. There must also be some, and I'm not sure you know about it, but some helpfulness in terms of SEO if you get people to spend longer time on a website. Like as opposed to just click to your website and leave the website again. So if you, I guess if Google can see you spend 2, 3 minutes just looking at a page, that must send a signal to Google that this is a page worth ranking, right?
Yeah, I've seen that with videos a lot. Like if you add a video onto a blog post, that will increase time on page, which increases SEO. We think of the same thing with demos. We've
Yeah.
added some demos into our own blog posts. And we also have like a lazy load feature because we've gotten some hardcore SEO people who say, like, I don't want to embed
Ah,
a large file onto my blog post. We have lazy load, so you can do that to make sure it's not slowing down the page.
yeah, that also makes sense. We've also tried speaking of SEO, we have this like classic library of terms that make sense in our industry, and then we've put some of the interactive demos there as kind of
Hmm.
a way to kind of try to spot a bit of intent that these people are actually spending a bit longer, and also to offer some kind of conversion that is not, if this is the first time you arrive at an SEO article that just holds some information. This is probably a place where we can explain you a bit, and we can spot a little bit whether you are interested in something like what we do.
Yeah, I think blogs are such a good use case, or I also think a lot of times like ads too, because a lot of times people are not ready to buy just yet. But again, if you don't have any type of like middle intent or something for them to engage with, you're just going to lose who that person is. So if you have interactive demos on the blog posts, if you are using like account identification or IP lookup, you can at least get an idea of like, okay, this person or this account is looking at this blog post. They're a really good fit. Maybe they're somewhat in market.
Yeah. I was thinking, did you say that the top 1% gets an engagement rate of 50%?
That's actually the top 25%. So the top 1% get 80% engagement rate.
So that means someone looks, like 100 people looks at the page, and then the top 25 get 50% people engaging.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's very impressive. Is there, just like with videos on the internet now, is there like a thumbnail gaming that you need to think about?
Oh, I think the thumbnail gaming version of that for an interactive demo is that opening modal. And
Okay.
that's why we're pretty pro, like, don't have the opening be a gate because that's not the most, like, friendly, inviting thing.
What term did you use again for that, Nat?
We call it, like, an opening modal, so just that, like,
Ah,
first screen you see and the first text on that screen.
yeah.
So if your opening is just like, "Hey, click here to get started," that's not the most engaging thing,
No.
versus what we see does really well is if you, 1, maybe have, like, your logo, have it nice designed, and then explain the value they're gonna get from seeing this going through this product tour. To
Yeah.
your point of, our attention span's a little lower, we recommend maybe also putting the time it's gonna take. So, take
Ah,
2 minutes to see how Dream Data can make
mm.
attribution so much easier. Not
Yeah,
best
yeah.
copy ever on the spot. But
Yeah, yeah.
something like make it enticing. Maybe we've also seen customers throw in social proof in that first opening, something that just makes someone want to click in and also matches the language of your website. I think sometimes when people first build an interactive demo, they think of it as something like Walk Me or Pendo, where the goal
Yeah.
is really to show you like click here, then click here. This is more of a marketing asset. The goal should be like get someone excited about your product. And I think that opening we've seen time and time again. Like because I actually look at every single top 1% demo when I build this report, go through them, and it's pretty obvious the ones that are doing well do have that enticing opening that makes you want to keep going and explore. It's not just like, again, hey, get started, click here.
Do you have some of these top 1% on your website somewhere?
Yeah, we actually have a customer showcase on our website.
Okay. I'm curious to see what the best would do here.
Yeah, we have the customer showcase on the website and then in our blog this was for last year's report, but we also did an interview series where I actually interviewed the builders of the top 1% of demos and
Yeah.
just like asked them like, how do you think about structuring a demo? Tell me more about your specific use case.
Mm.
So definitely have gotten a lot of insights from those who are the top 1%.
After the session, then put the link in the comments on LinkedIn, then we can fetch it and include it later.
Oh, perfect. Yep.
What about the size of the real estate or the how much you put like really small squares on the website, or do you have to like do like page wide size of the interactive demos? Did you study that?
Yeah, we typically see the most common deployment is linked out. So that means it's going to be full screen.
Ah, okay. So you take them somewhere else where it's like a full screen mode?
Yeah, that would be that secondary CTA where if you
Yeah.
say take a tour rather than having it embedded on a website, have it full screen. I think I see it
Ah,
as again, what are you trying to accomplish? Like if it's a quick 5-step snapshot of a particular like use case or persona, that might be fine to be embedded, especially I think products that have like a very clean UI do well with embedding. If your product maybe is a little more complex, there's a lot of details and nuances, that's when you might want full screen so that they can just like get the full
mm,
experience. Especially if it's like a longer demo, if you have multiple parts, if you're using our checklist, like again, I'm gonna keep bringing this up. This is one of our favorite examples, but Ramp is a really good example of like that
yeah.
full screen and it has multiple checklist parts. And I think that works really well versus for example, some of the demo centers, like when I was going to bring up, I have a few in mind, but like
Yeah.
the Clue Demo Center or Vitally, they have them embedded because they're like shorter demos for a specific persona or use case.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all of ours are embedded on pages where other stuff is going on. So we might want to consider isolating them.
We've also seen more customers using our like Lightbox feature, which is you click a CTA and it sort of like pops up. So it's not just embedded and it
Yeah.
takes up a little more screen. That's
Ah,
another option.
yeah, that makes sense also. If we go to the opposite side of what works, what are kind of the pitfalls you can step into with these interactive demos? What are the wrong things to do?
So number one, I already sort of mentioned it, but
Yeah.
it's treating this like a how to. And I think it's just we're used to using our software in a certain way, or especially if you're really complex software, it's kind of you might only know the more technical workflow of I've seen customers a lot of times will be like, okay, first log in, then click this button, then click this button. So I think as much as possible, like, yes, you want to show some magic of actually interacting with it, but try to make it more of a narrative. And we actually really recommend start story first. It's part of the reason this year we actually released it's a free tool on our website, but an AI storyboarder. So it will repurpose any landing page you have and spit it out into a format that is like optimized by these best practices from this report and so it will show like, hey, here's the story you should tell. Then think about adding the product
Yeah.
captures. Then think about, adding in your product versus most people start product first. And that causes it to be much more of a almost like a tutorial versus thinking about this as like a marketing asset.
That's super interesting. Say some more about the so you pick a URL and then your AI scans the URL, and what is the output that the user get?
Yeah. So it's first just like a landing page that shows the copy. So it'll say like step one. And I don't know if we can it'll take a little bit
Yeah,
longer. But
you can share your screen if you'd
I
like
don't know if
then.
we want to screen share it all and I could actually demonstrate it versus talking it out loud.
Yeah.
Here, let's do it. This is some live improving right now.
So as some of the demos we've built has been on certain use cases, so I hope the storyline is good, but I can't actually guarantee. So for those of you who are watching live now, you can see Natalie sharing the demo.
Yeah, and we'll do something fun. We'll live test one of your pages.
Take
Um,
out. We launched the Dream Data
let's
IO dash signals today. Take that
Yeah,
one.
I saw that. Okay. So this is gonna take like 30 seconds, so I'll
Yeah.
talk while it's happening. But essentially what we're doing is we're scraping so I'll actually pull up your landing page. We're scraping the landing page and we're looking for things
We
like
haven't actually we haven't built the interactive demo for this yet, but we intend to put one here. So I'm super eager to see what it comes
oh,
up with.
you can reuse this. This is free for anyone. It's not just Nevada customers.
Yeah.
Anyone's welcome to. But basically, we look at like all your copy, we look at your messaging, and we just repurpose it into a format that is ideal for interactive demos. We're
Yeah.
even going to tell you like what parts of the product should you show on it.
Yeah.
So let's see. It's finishing up now. And so yeah, it's just loading. It's taking, like I said, all of the the copy, seeing, okay, if we're going to turn this into like a 10 to 15 step flow. So this is the output is just like a landing page. So you
Yeah.
can actually go in and copy this modal copy. You're going to see it's going to pull from again that like more that
Yeah. Yeah.
value this language from your website, and even going to tell you like, hey, what part of your product should you show? So step number 2 might be like, okay, a tooltip. Let's focus on the signals dashboard,
Yeah.
and it goes all the way to like 15 steps. It will recommend CTAs as well.
That's fucking
Um,
smart.
if you are a Nevada customer, I'll give a quick plug that you can then click this button and it will go straight into your Nevadic account and create
Ah,
like a kind of outline for you within Nevadic. But if you're not, as I mentioned, you can literally just copy and paste the copy into your interactive demo platform. And it's
this
free
is
for
really
anyone. Feel free to use it. I won't be insulted if you're not a Nevada customer. Try it
what's
out.
the what was the URL for this, Natalie?
Yeah, it's here. I can put it. It's tools.ai storyboard.
Damn, that's a
I don't know
really
if I'm
smart
able
way
to.
to get people going.
Yeah, it was funny. We heard time and time again that storyboarding was kind of like one of the most necessary but painful steps of the process. It's kind of
Yeah.
like writing an essay. Like no one liked to outline,
Yeah.
uh, so we wanted to figure out a way to sort of automate it. Um, don't know if that chat went in the main chat, but I put it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
will put it on the LinkedIn afterwards, then people can fetch it there.
Perfect. But yeah, I wanted to think of a way to help automate the storyboarding part. And then also just like reuse your own language, your own copy, but incorporate those best practices from our report. Like we have been doing this report for 3 years in a row. We're sitting on so much data
Yeah.
and we want to make it a little more actionable versus just like reading about it in the report. How can we make it like dead obvious on how to incorporate these best practices?
I like the what should you call it? The go-to-market way of kind of you utilize that you can actually fetch information about whatever company it is, and then make the story more appealing without you actually having to do a lot of work to pitch a lot better.
Exactly, and I mean, it also just makes it faster to, like, get up and going and see some value. It was funny, we were really excited about this from, like, a growth perspective and a marketing perspective of, like, "This is a great lead gen tool," but we actually found our customers were, like, the most excited by it. Like, our
Yeah.
CS team was probably more excited than even our
Mm.
marketing team when this launched.
That makes a ton of sense. What are the metrics or goals that you hope to see kind of improving as you start using Navatic or another interactive demo? What are typically the things people, or maybe that's two questions, kind of what is the metrics people hope to move, and what are the metrics that you can actually observe? Like, obviously, there's a bunch of different leading metrics here that you can probably point to.
Yeah, I'd say it really does depend on what your business model is and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
The 2 most common we see are, I wanna increase website conversion rate, or if you're a PLG product, maybe you wanna even increase, like, free trial activation rate, because we have seen, users who go through these interactive demos are more likely to be successful in that first time onboarding experience, sort of makes sense. They've seen the product, they get a good understanding for it, and we do have, like, an event-based system, like how you measure website events. So if
Mm.
you're using any type of like mixed panel, amplitude, post hog, you can tie in interactive demo events with
Dream
the
data.
and dream data exactly. um,
Yeah.
see, hey, like let me see this whole story that someone is converting higher. So website or free trial conversion rate if your goal is more leads. But it's
Yeah.
funny, we've actually had a lot of people also come to us and say like, hey, our sales team is wasting a lot of time on low quality fits. We
Yeah.
want to automate that bottom funnel. So that might be they might be a little more looking for like pipeline or increasing or decreasing like the sales cycle,
Yeah.
or they might be looking just for like, are more people, making it to the second stage within their pipeline, or these better, higher quality leads, and sort of automating more and more of that bottom funnel.
Who's typically the buyer of Navatics product? Is that sales or marketing? My bet is marketing then, given what you said.
It's kind of a mix, honestly. We've seen both, and sometimes it's even product.
Okay.
The most typical deployment is the marketing team will buy it, put it up on the website because I think it is sometimes easiest if marketing or even sometimes like solution engineering are the ones that are building it,
Yeah.
especially product marketers. And then sales team might get some of the secondary benefits. Maybe they get some of the data and insights, and that's when they say like, "Oh, hey, I actually want an interactive demo for this use case, or can we make one for this industry?" And they sort of become like secondary beneficiaries, but
Yeah.
usually it's marketing or solution engineering who are the ones like building and maybe the first time buyers of it.
That makes a lot of sense. It'd be nice with a product team that went as far as actually producing these clickable demos as well. I don't think that's the case in many companies out there. Typically, it's us marketers who have to repair the communication after the product is done.
Yeah, usually it is the marketer building, if it's sometimes the product person buying.
Yeah, very cool. I really think also yeah, I really advise people to go take a look at this because in B2B, it's just not everybody who wants to do that demo. As you said, like 70% of the journey is done before demo calls are even started. And if you want to kind of capturing that intent before kind of the outreach is done to your competitors, then you need signals like IPs on your website, IPs engaging with your interactive demos.
Exactly, and I think just also, like, if you don't have easy ways for your prospects to see your product, there are now so many other sources out there. There are YouTube videos, we all know, like, Reddit is rising in all the rankings, not just in, like, SEO, but also in AI searches. Like, there are ways for people to find out about your product. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you wanna be the one sharing that product story and messaging versus
Yeah.
some random person on YouTube creating a video? Um I just think people are gonna find a way around seeing your product or finding out. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from customers like, "Hey, this prospect wanted to learn more, so they want to chat with me," or something like that. Like, we know how to get around the typical buying cycle these days.
Yeah, probably that also this also means that I think you need to have a conversation as a marketer with the rest of your organization that, people are less likely to do demos nowadays. So you also need to respect when I report on kind of IPs interacting with the demo. A signal is also of value. It's not only if they convert and become like a lead that gave us their email address.
And that's why I do recommend if you are one of those marketers, because we've had this plenty of times where they'll say, like, I am bought in. I really want an interactive demo. My team is still scared about showing the product because of competitors. My sales team's worried they're going to be replaced. I sometimes say, like, okay, what are channels you can control and experiment with? Because a lot of times once the sales team starts getting good leads from this demo, they're on board. Or they can start sending it to what I was saying earlier in email cadences and they start getting replies or data, they're on board. So like figure out maybe ways that you can like ads, I say. Like if you're spending a lot of money on ads, that's probably an easy channel you can experiment with that is a little less. I always find the website is so divisive. Best place to test it is website, but if that's too much, think about channels you can control and then
Yeah.
prove that, hey, yes, we're getting better quality leads. And look, they're still booking time once they've seen the value.
We didn't talk about that. Do people use them for kind of main assets for like campaign landing page campaigns where let's buy some traffic, send them to this landing page, and then walk them through what the product is?
Yep, I've seen them both as, like, the main CTA. So, literally, like, it might just be a LinkedIn ad where the CTA says, "Take a tour, explore product," and then the full CTA is just the interactive demo. We've
Mm,
been seeing interestingly enough, if anyone's thinking about Reddit ads, I feel like that is I've been hearing a lot of conversations. We've been seeing more customers putting it in Reddit ads. That, again, makes sense to me. Reddit is not a platform people wanna be sold at all. But if your buyer's on Reddit, which we're seeing especially a lot of technical audiences on Reddit,
mm.
let explore it on their own, let them try it out. And then one of my favorite quick use cases is in Google Ads if you do site links. Like just add it in as a site link. It
Oh,
takes almost no time to do. And we've seen it's one of our most successful site links because it's rather than again some kind of like vague copy, it's like, hey, try the product for yourself.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. On Reddit, do you mean it's not embedded on Reddit, is it? It's more the landing page of a Reddit campaign, right?
Yeah, the ad itself, we see a lot of times the ad itself might be like a preview of the demo, or we even have
Okay.
a GIF export feature where you can export a little GIF preview. So that might be the ad. And then when you click into it, it takes you to either a landing page with the interactive demo or just full screen interactive demo.
I see. What's so obviously I'm not an expert on this topic. So what is kind of what's the next thing coming up for interactive demos? Like what's coming within the next rest of this year or the next 12 months? Kind of what's kind of exciting for you to think about there?
I have a few different angles I could take this. I'll start like short term, long term. Short term, one trend we're seeing really popular right now is conferences and events. I think everyone
Okay.
understands that events are like, I feel like they're having a big, very trendy moment. Everyone's like, hey, we're sick of all this online stuff. Let's get together in person. So we've seen a few customers will deploy these at their booths and they'll create like really cool, almost like demo hubs or centers where people will go up, have like a touchpad, like a whole setup, and can go through the demo on their own. We even had one customer who I thought this was the coolest deployment. They had a few different demo stations. So people going to the booth could go up, click on the little demo station, but they also had that mirrored to a larger monitor that was like on top of the booth. So then anyone passing by could just walk through what he was clicking through. And we see this too. Like we oftentimes use demos at conferences and we'll do it on like a loop mode, so it's just automatically going. And there is something about just like a moving video, there we go, that makes people like want to just stop and watch.
Yeah.
And this customer actually reported about like a 63% increase in visitors by having this whole demo set up compared to last year. So whether it's like user events, conferences, trade shows, we've seen demoing that's really popular, especially because no one wants to deal with like one bad Wi-Fi because we can have demos
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
offline. And then two, like what if the product has a bug? What if it's not working as expected? Conferences, like the amount of money you spend, people just don't want to be live demoing. So
I
that's
think
been
that's a great one, Natalie. That also like if there's a lot of people at the booth and then there's not enough people to actually speak with people, then those waiting can actually consume the messaging you want them to consume while they're waiting. Nice.
exactly. I have a little bit of a longer term
Yeah,
one.
let's hear it.
I've talked about this a little bit and goes really well with your signals launch today. But I do think using the data from demos, we've already talked a little bit about it, but eventually will almost be like more valuable than the actual demo itself. And part of that is the fact that we're seeing more and more the like choose your own adventure style demos. I talked about the demo centers. We actually also have like features in product where you could say, hey, of these three areas, which ones are you most interested in?
Mm.
And an even a more advanced version of that that says, what level of interest are you? And then as a sales rep, I can see, okay, I am most interested in this part of the product, least interested in this part. I now know to tailor that live demo towards the part of the product you're most interested in. So I think just like how we're seeing just generally signals are becoming so popular, the adoption more of like, what is the data I'm getting from my prospect going through this demo? Less than like, yes, the demo itself is valuable, but more thinking about that in the way that we think so much as I've talked about like in PLG, how like product led signals and product qualified leads is so popular. Like I feel like this will almost be the next wave of that.
Yeah, super good. And that makes a ton of sense for me that you start to build a graph of who's engaging with with the demos and like which demo are they engaging with, and then getting that into the hands of either the marketing team or if it's the account owner that gets notified that now your account is actually engaging with this demo, then go have a conversation with them about it.
Exactly. And I think not to get too scary or talk about AI because I've tried to avoid it, but like we are sadly seeing that companies are being tasked right now with like smaller teams. And so if we think about the importance of like prioritization, knowing who are our best fits, I think more and more people are going to think about rather than just like mass, how do I hit everyone? Like, how do I really understand who is my best fit in market? And with, again, that like first party data that I know versus just third party data or like mixing them together.
Yeah, super nice. I feel like we should just get back to the basics one more time, just also for myself in terms of the actual creation. I just want to like spend a little bit more time on how do we create good or great interactive demos. What is kind of I know you said a bit about it already, Natalie, but kind of I just wanted to hear it again, like the 1, 2, 3 most important things to think about as we create these interactive demos.
Yeah, I'd say step one, start with a story. So whether you storyboard out yourself, use our storyboard AI, or just like literally write down some bullet points of what do you want to cover, then share that with maybe your sales team or other people who know the product really well. A trap we often see people fall into is they'll build this beautiful, nice demo, and then a third party will be like, "You forgot this entire really important feature." So I'd say
Yeah.
step number one, a draft storyboarded out can be as simple as a few bullets, can be our storyboarder AI. Then, once you've gotten alignment on the story, you actually go into your product, take captures. So that's actually the little like clones. I always call them fancy screenshots, but it's like clones of your software. Then you can edit that software. So if you have really messy demo data, or if you have a messy demo environment, clean it up, make it, maybe remove parts that don't need to be there. Or like we do even have a table AI feature. So if you have a table that's like full of a bunch of fake data, I feel like we often see that like a table full of like John Doe, John Doe, John Doe. You can prompt it to say, hey, turn this into office characters instead.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So step two, clean up the data. And then step three would be really refining. So once you have that first draft, go back, shorten it 10 to 15 steps if you can, make it as short as possible. really think about that value driven language, right? Is each step helping like tell the story or what's unique or different about my product versus do I have steps in there? And it's okay to show a few like things that actually stimulate using the product. But if every step is like click here, then click here, that might be an indicator of like those are maybe things I can cut back on.
Sweet. Perfect, Nat. Then I have a to-do list for my team as well when we're done. Just before we end, kind of, what are any kind of marketing tactics that you're excited about to try out for the rest of the year for Navatic? More
Honestly, I'm
campaigns
sort of
or something?
a little less fun than like a digital campaign, but I'm on the events train right now.
Yeah.
We're doing especially like customer events is something I'm really excited about, and in-person like workshops. And part of the reason I talk about how I see all these demos, I have all these ideas, but part of it's because I'm kind of lucky. Like a lot of part of my job is just talking with other marketers and hearing how they're using demos. And
Mm.
those things fuel content, they fuel ideas, they fuel messaging. So I'm really excited about the flywheel of like go get your smartest customers in person in a room, have them learn from each other, maybe a few workshops, presentations, and just have them meet. And like every single time I learn a new use case, I learn a new tip,
Mm.
I learn something I never would have thought about with demos. And I thought, you think I know everything about demos by now? Just scratching the surface. So I'm really excited about that, like in person customer events.
Like customers always think that you are the one that knows the most about your product, but then you start talking with them and then they're utilizing it in several different ways that you never thought about, or you've never really coined it in that way. So I can definitely plus one that. How did you do it specifically in that? Is it going to their offices? Is it like buying breakfast for a bunch of? I'm just like, I really like it as well.
Yeah, so last year we did our first ever like full user event. It was 2 days. We flew in some customers. It was like 30 of our top customers came to New York. That was incredible, but we recognized it was limiting because it was just in New York and a lot of work for 2 days.
Mm.
So this year we're doing a little more like roadshow style. So we're doing like they're about like 4 hours, few hour workshops, a few hour just like networking, happy hour, and just like getting local customers to again workshop style, maybe just sharing about like what are you working on, what's working, and then a few presentations, we call them like show and tells, of just like hey, present to customer about how you're using it really quick, 10-15 minutes, to just get some ideas flowing about like other use cases.
Fantastic. I wonder when we should start doing the Dream Data conference as well. I think that's a super good idea, getting that many of your like best customers in the same room. Cool. Nat, is there anything you feel like you haven't said about interactive demos that people should know about?
I think we covered all the main things, but I always like to offer like if you are working through a demo, want to ask about use cases, I seriously have like way too much of this demo knowledge in my brain. I'm always happy to jump on a call or just like give feedback if you send me a demo. But I think the most important things as we talked about is just like short, value focused, and think about it more like a story than just a product walkthrough.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nat, for educating me and the listeners on this topic. We definitely have a lot to learn at DreamData on how to utilize these demos effectively enough. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for spending the time with me and Natalie today. So thank you, Nat. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And I wish you a great day.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
We hope you like listening to us. Subscribe to our podcast and the ones that we have been guests on.
And if you have any feedback for us, just do let us know. And should there be a guest that you think we should be talking to, then pitch us.
We're looking forward to seeing you.